This time we are in an armchair discussion, and the topic is the urgency of now. We've got Trammell Crow from EarthX and Bill Shireman from Future 500. Oh, they're gradually working their way here. Chip had wanted me to share a story, which I'm going to try to squeeze in even somewhere along the way, but not now. A couple of stories, actually, that he'd like me to share, so we'll see.
The urgency of now. The urgency of now. Are we starting right now? Because it's urgent that we start now. So
let's go.
Topic at hand. So here we are. Thank you, first of all, to Chip and to Sally and everybody that's been involved in making the AREDAY event so spectacular and so interesting, and such a diverse set of people that we're bringing together.
And welcome to the Bill and Trammell Show.
Bill and Trammell Show, exactly.
And in Dallas, you'll get the Chip and Sally Show.
Exactly, because it's all about bringing these opposites and odd bedfellows, and believe me, we are two odd bedfellows even here, with a lot more in the room. We are here to discuss how to bring Republicans and Democrats and corporations and activists, conservatives and progressives, across the line together on climate, primarily. We're also here to discuss an endangered species that's been somewhat overlooked in our discussions, one that has reached critically low numbers and has been suffering at the hands of active poaching for the last generation. And that old white guys is one.
You're close.
One of them. But this one, and it's very related, is the Republican environmentalist. Both Trammell and I have been Republicans and environmentalists, I think. And shot at, yeah, and screamed at and yelled at and all kinds of things over the time.
And demeaned in the newspaper.
But we have found, through carrying out somewhat wild and crazy positive conspiracies over a period of time, that the brittle shell of fear and anger and ideological certitude that divides us cracks easily. And that this divide that we have between Republicans and Democrats on climate is a contrived division. There are legitimate differences in how we want to approach the issue, but if we get the strategy right, the messaging right, and use the tools right, this change can happen very fast. So engage with us, please. We won't have enough time to go through the whole thing, but continue this conversation. So, Trammell, in the face of this adversity, how is it even worth trying to change the Republican Party on the issue of climate? Shouldn't we just give up? And
of course it's worth it. What are you going to do without them? Does it sound like that'd be really great? You wouldn't have them anymore, and you could pass a bunch of bills. Stop and think about it. A one-party system. That sounds like a autocratic system?
Mm-hmm.
No. What happens to the tuna when you shoot all the tuna? Then the other fish aren't there, and then they start dying, and they start dying. And what happens when you knock off an entire endangered species?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then the ecosystem dies.
And that is exactly what Republicans and Democrats and conservatives and progressives are. We are an ecosystem, and we balance each other. I like to think of conservatives as the protectors. They tend to have a worldview that we're at risk, that nature is threatening, that people are selfish, and their focus tends to be on protection against, invaders from outside and selfishness inside. The progressives are, I consider them the liberators. They have a more optimistic view of human nature. They think nature is always, with us, and that people are basically selfless. And so they don't protect as well, but they do focus on liberating, and letting loose. Those two, protecting and liberating, make a tremendous match if we work together.
Gotta have both.
Gotta have both. So, I don't want to become a Democrat, Because I think the Democrats, just as the Republicans have been taken over by the warrior class rhetorically and vested interests in terms of policy, the Democrats have also been taken over by the warriors rhetorically, and by dividing the left and right, the status quo, which goes across, gets to control both.
Tom Steyer sounded pretty good last night.
Except that I think that, and I love Tom, and I love what he's doing, but I think the idea of packing the Supreme Court and taking executive action over the objections of Congress and things like that, that's what scares the right. And it falls into the trap that, what's that? Of course it is. It absolutely is. But that's what we need to get away from.
Hey, two rights don't make a wrong.
That's right. Well, let me jump to, because I know we're going to run out of time at this rate. But what is the issue? What is the industry that has most opposed and shut down action on climate?
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas, agriculture, so on.
Well, okay.
But there's one other industry that we've found in our on-the-ground work on this that is relatively small. It's about $6 billion a year industry, but pivotally positioned to stop bipartisan climate action, and that is the political industry, the political and media industry. About $12 billion every 2 years in lobbying fees, government affairs fees, polling, focus groups, campaign contributions, and so on, that flows through this system that gets to shield politicians
They would be at risk for
from
what?
bribery. But they would be at risk because climate is one of 4 issues that they call wedge issues: abortion, guns, immigration, and climate.
So they don't want to solve that issue.
They don't want to solve it because it's too profitable to keep those issues at hand. Now, oil and gas and coal and ag certainly play into this because basically these are lobbyists who have 4 sacrificial issues that they know they don't have to resolve because nobody's forcing them to resolve them. They can keep the abortion issue and the gun issue and the immigration issue and the climate issue running forever. And they use it to divide people. They take the most radical right view of climate, the denialist view, and they pump that up. They take the most radical left view, the view that we have to end capitalism, and they pump that up, and they get people into these separate tribes and divide them so they don't hear from each other, and they each think the other one is all crazies. Inside your own tribe, not everybody's crazy. Most people are reasonable, but the loud ones are crazy. But you think, because you only hear the crazy ones from the other side, you think everybody's crazy there. So what we've done in Texas and in California, tell a little of the story of Texas Business for Clean Air.
Texas Business for Clean Air. That's how I got involved in the environment. These 2 Democrats, businessmen in Dallas, came to me and said, you're the only green Republican businessman we can find. Please join us to fight the utility company who wants to get permits for 11 coal-fired plants. That sounded bad, but when they said, getting a fast-track approval for Governor Perry, I went, yikes! Anything on fast-track approval of Governor Perry, So we formed a group called the Texas Business for Clean Air. That was the first time there had ever been the word clean and the word business in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we won. We got 200 business guys, major leaders, Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso, San Antonio, Austin, and Houston, to sign their name on as members of this to go against the power company. Now, I didn't think it would ever happen because at the country club, the power company, he's in your country club. And in the Chamber of Commerce, he's on your committee. They're everywhere. Mm-hmm. But we won. So where was I going with that?
Yeah, well, we won. You were able to bring together the right and the left, corporations.
Yeah, business guys.
And that led to, and Texas is now, I believe, it's certainly ahead of California in renewables generation. And I think second to California in renewables as a proportion of electricity.
But for wind, it's biggest.
Yeah, it is the biggest. It is by far the biggest market for wind in the country, thanks to that campaign and the takeover of the Texas utilities.
So when I figured out that, oh my God, this can happen in Texas, that's when I started getting involved. and started the Earth Day Texas and started giving money to environmental groups, which I can't afford to do anymore. And there was one called the Republicans for Environmental Protection. It's a grassroots group started by a housewife in Albuquerque. And it was Grassroots America. And then after many years, I guess 20 years, she wanted to retire. And so the new people made it more of a advocacy group. And the congressman and Republican congressman said, we don't even want to take a meeting with you as long as the word environment is in your name. Oh, that was kind of mean of them. So they changed the name to Conserve America. And it is a bunch of very conservative guys working for environment. There are a lot of them now.
There is a subculture, believe it or not.
But they're all underfunded.
They're all underfunded, and we need a genuinely bipartisan, as the group before us. We need to respect ideological diversity because we really do fit together when we explore our ideologies. Each ideology fixes a flaw in the other ideology, and we've got to bring these folks together and really, really listen. So here's what we've done in California with some friends. We had a group of donors who had concerns about California. Some of them were very concerned about the state of democracy, and some of them were worried that the Republican Party had gone way wild in a kind of warrior direction, needed to be brought back, but also that both parties had manipulated the political system and corrupted democracy. So they wanted to fix democracy. And then some of us wanted to make sure that California was in the lead environmentally and had a firm, stable climate policy. So over the course of about 4 election cycles, we, and I can't say we because it was brilliant political strategists that we were working with and some generous donors that made it possible, who developed a predictive model that identified 3 voter groups that are left out nationally of our political discussions. Right now, our political discussions are dominated by the warrior left and the warrior right. And what we call the empowerment left and the empowerment right are left out of that. These are folks that have either progressive or conservative points of view, but they're more about empowering people than corporations or government to do the solutions. These folks are left out. And then the centrists are left out. So we developed a predictive model that identified those disenfranchised voters. And we developed a system to reach out to them, and we tested it and so on, and the sum total was close to $100 million in campaigns and pilot development and so on. But what we were finally able to do with that was so accurately, with about 87% accuracy, so accurately identify those pockets of voters that could be swung to protect democracy and swung to protect the environment, even across party lines, that we were able to achieve breakthroughs in both of those areas. For example, we elected 2 strong Republican environmentalists who turned out to be champions for the environment, many other solutions as well, but champions for the environment that recruited a total of 8 Republicans in the Assembly who were the margin of victory that allowed us to renew the cap and trade program, which was in threat, needed a 2/3 vote, was not going to get it. Only with this bipartisan coalition were we able to save the cap and trade program in California. And that is true in almost every state. If you have an all-Democrat or an all-Republican policy, we've seen in the past elections how we have an unstable policy. One party passes it, the other one tries to take it away. In California, we have bipartisan support. It was painful, particularly after the fact. We all got attacked. The progressives and the conservatives got attacked for joining together on this by bitter warriors who had legitimate grievances, frankly, and by the status quo.
And the media.
And the media, yeah. And the status quo interests that wanted to roll things back. But we won on climate, bipartisan. That's what we got to do nationally. And we also won on democracy reform. We were able to pass 3 state ballot measures against the entrenched interests in both parties. The first to reform redistricting, to end gerrymandering and establish a commission. The second to end partisan primaries and establish an open primary system. That allows us to bring voters together so that we have integrated left-right politics. And the third was to establish transparency in legislative affairs so that basically the Democrats who happen to control the legislature can't shove through secret legislation at the very end. So we have transparency in that. 3 major reforms of democracy against vested interests that we were able to pass because we knew the voters that were pro-democracy and pro-environment. So now we brought together, we got 30 seconds, brought together 20 donors at the last EarthX.
Green Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Green Republicans who spent a day with Lindsey Graham and us.
A couple of Democrats.
A couple of Democrats were in there too. We had a diverse, but our focus was on how do we overcome the duopoly, the political duopoly that profits from keeping the climate wedge in. And we developed a plan, and now essentially we've finished that, and now we're going to go out and try to raise the money and the support for that plan.
It says 0 down there. Mickey,
and we're going to get
Mickey's
little
hands
electric
are pointing
shocks.
up.
Yeah.
So what's your last shot?
The last shot is, please listen to broad ideological diversity. There is magic in the combination of these ideas and these people. Try not to convince Republicans of climate science. They are ready to believe climate science. What they fear is climate policy. What they fear is a Trojan horse kind of collectivist mentality that they're sold based on quotations that they can pull from the left. If they stop fearing the policy, they will fully embrace the science, and we will have better. We could have done such a better job in California with a right-left. We can do it next. I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the ancient Roman days, at the end of every speech, Cato would say something like, "And Carthage must be burned." And I say, Earth Day.